Hello everyone. So this is going to be an overview of our first major writing project, an autoethnographic research project and essay. And I will get into that in just a minute, but I'm right here on our syllabus page because I wanted to first offer you an overall explanation of the narrative or design of this course and our three major writing projects. So this course, if you go down to our course description, you'll see that this focuses on persuasive research-based writing. It's a little bit different than 101. We're focusing on research and persuasion, how to persuade an audience, how to persuade our reader of our ideas, of our discoveries, of our opinions. And if you go down here to the course competencies, this also includes, where is it right here? Synthesizing sources. And that simply means bringing together different sources, different components into a new whole. So gathering research, listening to what experts have to say, and bringing it into our own opinion and our own argument. Then we go down here. I'm continuing down to look at the major writing projects, the three major writing projects. And again, these are just introductions. But the first one is, well, the main thing I wanted to point out here is that they all build off of one another. This whole semester is really going to be different aspects of the same type of research trajectory. And it's not going to be repetitive at all. It shows you the complexity of discovery. And so our first writing project, I'm going to talk a lot more about that in just a minute, but it's going to be an autoethnographic research essay where we look at a community that we belong to and we identify a social issue or phenomenon. And by phenomenon, I mean something, that could be positive, some kind of action in the behavior of the people. But we're going to identify something that we have seen and experienced and kind of let our audience know that it is happening within this smaller community and that it is socially relevant to society at large, on a larger scale. Then in our second writing project, we are going to take that issue or phenomenon that we identified, and we are going to look at what other experts have to say about it, what they have published about it, and we are going to write that up to an academic audience. This step is incredibly important to get beyond our opinion and our personal experience and observations and listen to what other people have to say about it, which gives us a much more rich, robust, multifaceted, and honest and truthful perspective of the issue and phenomenon. And the last project is we are going to be taking everything that we have learned thus far, and we are going to, during these first two, we're also going to be forming our own opinions and ideas of things that should happen or how we should respond to this issue or phenomenon. And our last writing project, we are going to pick an audience and persuade them of that opinion. So let's get into our first writing project here, this autoethnographic research and writing project. And autoethnography, that's a big word, but it's not as complicated as it sounds. It is a very formal and respected type of research method. So a method that researchers use when they are, trying to discover new social phenomenon and issues. And it's used a lot in anthropology, but we're going to use it here because it's really important and a vital way that helps students see the value of everybody's lived experience. We are all experts of our lived experience. And a lot of times we are witnessing very complex, very important, very socially relevant behavior within our communities that we don't quite even recognize because they're so normalized that they've become invisible and just kind of habitual to us. And so the goal of this first writing project is to identify something that is significant within this community and write about it. And so to break it down, ethnography is the type of research method, and please read this all on your own several times as we go through this. I'm just going to cover a few key points. But ethnography is when a researcher goes into a community or some kind of cultural subculture or city, someplace, but they go as an outsider, and they will spend a year to 2 years just observing the behavior of the people and looking for themes, looking for recurring actions and behaviors and interactions that they determine to be really socially relevant, really important. And they do that as an outsider. Autoethnography, so right down here, auto simply means self, okay? Autoethnography is when we look at one of our own communities and we consider our experience within that community as evidence of the issue or phenomenon that we're observing, okay? So this kind of breaks it down right here. But for this research project, what we are going to be doing is each of us belong to quite a few different communities, okay? And when we think of communities for this project, I want you to think of contained communities that have parameters, that have boundaries around them. And so we move, whether it's, moving from campus to the community of campus, community of our family, community of our work, community of our friends. We move through all of these different communities, and each of these communities have their own way of speaking, have their own way of interacting, have their own common interests among that community. And there are outsiders who just don't get it, who are outside of that community. So that's what I mean by contained and having a boundary or parameter. And as a researcher, that's really important to pick some kind of contained focus, like a community, in your research to make it more meaningful so that you can really observe the people and how they interact and in ways that are meaningful. Because if we try and just observe everyone, it's just too watered down and it becomes meaningless. And so since we don't have time to actually do formal observations or field work or interviews, a lot of this is going to be based on memory. We have memories of things that we've experienced and observed within different communities, and we're going to build on that. But first, we're going to pick a community. So these communities can be anything. Let's see, I think I have some ideas down here. It can be you're all part of the community at Paradise Valley. It can be a community of students. It can be a club. It can be a family. It can be a congregation. It can be some kind of group of people that gather together for a common interest or common goal. And you're going to pick one of these, and you are going to pull from your memories. If you have time to observe the interactions and the actions at this time, you're going to do that. And you're going to work towards identifying an issue. So kind of maybe a problem among the behavior within this community or some other phenomenon. And it can be something positive, like the way they support one another, the way that there's mentorship, the way that they, solve problems together. But you're going to observe something within that. So any kind of research project starts with a research question. So this is going to be the question that is going to kind of influence our research. So what social issue or phenomenon have I personally experienced or observed in the behavior of the people within a community I belong to? And you're going to name that community. You're going to tell me what that community is. And you're going to commit to observing that community. And then going forward, and how and why is that social behavior or issue or phenomenon relevant to society beyond that community? Why should people outside of the community care what's going on in here? Okay, so the goal here is to simply identify that social issue and convince your audience of PVCC students. So fellow students. So it's not going to be an academic audience. When I mention academic audience, that's usually an audience of professors and researchers. Rather than that, you're going to try to convince fellow students. Okay, and so you're going to think about what kind of language, what kind of, style would I write this up in to convince fellow students that this issue or phenomenon exists and that it's relevant. And so here, I go into a little bit more of what a community is. Here I've got some examples here. It could be a gaming community. If you get together with, a gaming club or a gaming group, that would be a community, a college student body, a club, a team, a group of old friends, a group of hobbyists, a fantasy football league, a group of people that regularly get together and interact with one another, a religious congregation. There are so many different options, and I'll be sharing more options with you over the next week. but you're going to pick one and focus on that. So that's the research, is drawing from memories and observations and experiences from within that community. And for the subsequent writing project, you're going to write, again, for an audience of Paradise Valley students, an essay that first introduces and describes that community so that they know exactly what group of people this is, and then, two, convinces your fellow students of this issue or phenomenon that's happening among the people. How are they behaving towards one another? How are they interacting? Again, autoethnography is all about behavior of the people. So they are the focus of your research. Okay, so that's the main goal. That's what you're going to write about. And this is really important right here. What you are not going to do yet is you are not going to propose a solution or a call to action. You're not going to try and solve this issue. You're not going to kind of compel your audience to do anything. You're simply going to argue that this exists, and it is important to know that it exists. Okay? And here, for autoethnography, the key form of evidence that you're going to be using to persuade your audience are your personal experiences and your personal observations. So this type of research is written in first person. It's I have experienced this, I have seen this. And that's going to be the main type of evidence that's going to be used to persuade your audience that this issue exists. You will also bring in one outside source to corroborate, your claims, to let your audience, maybe use that source to let your audience know that, hey, this is happening in my community, but here is another expert, another writer, another stakeholder who has also seen this. Therefore, it's socially relevant beyond my community. Okay? So this is going to be about 1,200, 1,500 words. That might sound like a lot, but once we start writing about our stories, which takes time, if we're going to use our personal stories and our personal experiences and observations as evidence, we are going to have to take time to write them out in a way that is engaging, that helps our audience see our personal experiences rather than just read about them. And that takes time. It's actually quite enjoyable to write. And that brings up another point. In autoethnography, since that is writing about the personal, it gives you a lot more freedom as a writer to be creative. It is not a very sterile clinical type of writing. You're sharing personal story. You can bring in dialogue. You can bring in feelings and emotional responses and write in really, really interesting and casual ways that will really appeal to that audience of fellow students. Okay, and that takes time. That takes time. And so we will look at examples. We will look at professional examples. We will look at student examples of this. So you can wrap your mind around what this looks like. And again, as I just mentioned, the issue or phenomenon that you identify within this community, that's the same issue or phenomenon we're going to work on in our writing project too, and that we're going to convince a targeted audience in our writing project 3. So keep that in mind. And here is the criteria, basically 1,200, 1,500 words. It will be written in first person, involve a community, one outside source, and everything in this class will be written in MLA formatting. And we have a whole module full of handouts and tutorials and resources on MLA writing. There's a shortcut on our homepage. Here are the due dates. Let me know if you have any questions.